All right, perfect. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining this session of 4 functional strength and conditioning exercises for Wushu. I apologize if I'm looking to this side. I've got a couple of notes and we'll be going through a number of things. As Brandon had stated, my name is Mario Martinez. I am from Sterling, Virginia. I'm also joined by one of our students and U.S. team members, Evan Shu. And just a little bit of background and some context before we get started into what we're going to be going over today. So just a little bit of context. Again, I've been coaching Wushu for about 20 to 25 years. And in that time, I've also had a second life in strength and conditioning programming, in addition to the fitness industry, and with also a stint as an competitive Olympic weightlifter, training under a former Olympian for a number of years. And so what I'm going to be going over today is, again, 4 functional exercises that we utilize within PMA and our training protocol over the last couple of years that we found a lot of benefit in terms of strength and conditioning. Before we get started into that, I want to emphasize a couple of different things, just because in my former Olympic weightlifting career, I spent a significant amount of time with the barbell. And so we're here in a home gym setting. We figured this would be the most optimal to show you. But what I came to find out is that most Wushu gyms just aren't beneficially set up for this type of environment, right? And I'll give the caveat to you that I still do firmly believe that a strength training protocol utilizing a barbell and weights is the best way to train. I do feel like that is going to be the quickest and just best way for you to be able to do compound movements. By compound movements, I mean movements that utilize multiple muscle groups. Things like the barbell squat, deadlifts. In Olympic weightlifting, we would do power clean and jerk, snatch. Those are all really good at building strength and explosiveness. However, in Wushu, I really do feel like that is more benefited by having a coach who can sort of walk you through the movement. So for the sake of today, what we've done is we put together sort of what works for us, right? And these are things that you can do using bands. These are mostly body weight exercises. And we'll also show you some variations, different exercise that we found that can work. And then I'll also show you how sort of we put it together. Again, this is just going to be our approach. There's many different approaches that you can take. There's things that you can do to develop explosiveness, strength. Again, it's going to vary depending on you and what you have available. But I will say that this is something that you can do anywhere. You can take this on the road. I've incorporated this with my athletes when we travel sometimes. So again, this is kind of what works for us. Having said that, we're going to go ahead and kick off. And I'm going to go over a couple of things and just some pitfalls that I think that athletes fall under, and you want to be careful and consider when talking about strength and conditioning. I'm going to use my trusty board here to note a couple of these down because I think that they're important to emphasize, and I'll put this up. And these are just things that we've encountered throughout the years that I think is super important, at least within my competitive career and then within my athletes. These are things that you want to be considerate of. There's really 3 primary things. The first one that you want to do is you want to make sure that you set goals. Okay. Maybe a little bit hard to see, but goal setting. Main reason being is you got to figure out what exactly your focus is. And I think one of the things that we tend to see athletes fall into and succumb to is as you start incorporating a strength and conditioning program, you don't want to lose sight of what it is that you're trying to achieve, right? So if your primary goal is to become a top level Wushu athlete, then don't forget that that's your goal, because anything that you do that's strength and conditioning related is going to have an impact on that. And so you want to tailor your training to your goal. Wushu is such a technique specific sport that it really does require Wushu. Nothing is going to make you better at Wushu than just doing Wushu. And so incorporating a strength and conditioning program should supplement your Wushu training. It shouldn't be your primary thing. Now, again, that really depends on your goals, and we'll cover that in just a second when we get into a little bit of program. The second thing that you need to consider, which is something that I think is really undervalued in, well, quite honestly, a lot of sports training, and that's what I call the 4 R's. The 4 R's, in my mind, are rest, recover, and then rinse and repeat. These are things that I really, really emphasize with all my athletes, and these are things that I've emphasized over the years. And that is specifically when talking about a strength training program. It's going to be a lot of taxing, pretty taxing on your overall body. So you need to consider how much recovery you are taking from training day. The reason being is that's going to have an effect on your Wushu training. So I'll give you an example. If you're going in and training a heavy leg day, or you're doing heavy training that's fatiguing your body or your legs in particular, and then you're going in the next day and doing a jump training specific day, it may not be the most beneficial. And that's typically when we've seen the most type of injuries arise, is when an athlete is training under fatigue, and then they start incorporating a strength training program, and it just even fatigues them even more. So you've got to make sure that you're getting plenty of rest. Now, for my younger athletes, and by the way, this session is really intended to be for both coaches and athletes, that also includes, for my younger athletes, sleep, making sure that you're taking rest days, making sure that you're drinking plenty of water, eating well, all those things, although they may not seem like they have an impact as you're young, but as you get much older, it really, really is going to have a significant impact regardless. Not getting sleep, going in from training day to training day and training at 50% because you simply just haven't recovered enough from the last workout is going to have a detrimental impact on your training. So make sure that you consider that. All right. And then the last thing that I'm going to put is basically plan. Okay. Planning. By planning, what I really mean is programming. Now, that might be a concept it may be new to you in Wushu, but in weight training, it's something that we use all the time. And by programming, what we mean is you basically designate what training it is that you're doing during any given time for a period of time. So I'll share with you the approach that I take at PMAA with our athletes. And again, you can take this and utilize this as you will for however it may work for you. But the way that I incorporate it is I look at a training year, and I look at January 1st all the way to the end of the year in December. On my calendar, I'll note when any major milestones are on our calendar specific to any major tournaments that we have coming up, any demonstrations or performances that we have, or anything that will require a more sports-specific type of focus. Within that, I can then look at where I can incorporate my strength training program. And I may be able to implement more strength training within that period, and then I'll start to phase out as we get into competition phase. So for example, if I have a tournament in March, in January, I may be able to focus a little bit more on strength training and conditioning, because as we get closer to March, you're going to be doing, or I'm going to be having my athletes do more jumps, do a lot more technique heavy workouts specific to Wushu. So I need to make sure that their bodies can handle it. Similarly, when I did Olympic weightlifting, a typical cycle would be, we would start a long period cycle. So we would do long cycle of exercise, somewhere in the rep scheme of like 10 reps. And that would be for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And the focus would be just to get your joints and your body ready for heavy weight training. Then we would start incorporating maybe, less reps, but higher weight. And then we would incorporate to where you would get the strongest. And then you would take a week off, and then you would rinse and repeat. Similarly, that's kind of the approach that we take at PMAA, because you really need to plan and make sure that you're coordinating your strength training to benefit your Wushu. And then similarly there, if your focus is, just staying healthy, kind of the things that we've put together today for you are really centered around that. So if you're looking at really gaining strength, explosiveness, that's really not going to be the aim of today. The aim of today is really more of just general condition, just what I call general physical fitness. Okay. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to have Evan come in, and I'm going to have him demonstrate a couple of the different movements. The first phase where I like to start before we even get into the exercises is we're going to teach you the PMA warm-up. I'd like to take credit for this, but I can't. This is a warm-up that we've created and adopted from a physical therapy program that's based out of Washington, D.C. They work with a couple of professional teams, and we brought them in and they taught us this warm-up. This is a dynamic warm-up, and it's really intended to get your joints and all of your body ready. This is a great dynamic warm-up because it doesn't require a lot of space. As you'll see, Evan's going to demonstrate it right here. Typically, what I would have athletes do is essentially do it going down a wushu carpet. So when you're asking yourself, well, how many should I do of each exercise? To the length of the carpet one way, and then going back with the same exercise. And there's about 6 or 7 different exercises, and we'll take you through those. So Evan, we're going to start with the world's greatest stretch. He's going to do 3 of each exercise, and he'll alternate both sides. So you can see. Evan, take a step back so you got more space. So the first exercise, he's going to do a deep lunge. He's going to place the opposite hand down. His elbow is going to touch his toe, and then he's going to turn at the waist and rotate externally out and look up at his hand. He's going to switch sides. Same thing, deep stretch all the way down, turn and rotate. One more time from the opposite side, all the way down, rotate at the waist. And again, this is a really good exercise. A lot of these exercises, the reason they were developed together in succession were because a lot of these exercises build on balance, speed, strength, coordination, but this is generally how we start. Second exercise, Evan is going to do a reach back and look behind. So he reaches back, looks back and reaches back. And if you'll notice, the heel is up and he's balancing on his heel. From there, he's going to switch feet. He's going to go back. He's balancing and reaching backwards. Think of it as a bow stance with the heel up, reaching back and switch one more time. Reaching back and looking back. One thing that you'll notice is he's keeping his balance. So when you're actually in a gym, what I want you to do is reach back, reach, and then step back, anchor, and reach. Again, this is going to help you with balance and coordination. All right, go ahead. Next exercise. We're going to do lunge with a twist. He's going to take a deep lunge, twist, and twist. He's turning his torso to both sides, the full range of motion. Twist, twist. Last one. Lunge, twist, twist. Good. And again, if he were in a gym setting, he would be taking a step, lunge, twist, twist, lunge, twist, twist. Full range of motion. Make sure your torso is completely twisting to both sides. Next exercise is going to be drop stance, twist. Now, he drops to one side, rotates to the other side, twist. Then he takes a step and switches sides. Step, starts with the rear side first, moves forward, and then rotate, rotate. And Evan, show us one more time. Good. And again, if you were doing this in a gym setting, you would start with the furthest way forward. So if I'm moving in this direction, I would drop this way, 1, 2, rotate, twist. Then I would step, again, away, forward, twist, and rotate. Good. All right. Next exercise. Go ahead. He's going to go single leg balance with the foot on top and sit back. This is essentially a hamstring and glute stretch. He's going to switch sides. Same thing. This is very similar to the Kotwei Ping Hung, except the foot is on top of the knee. Go ahead. One more time. And down. Good. And again, now Evan's got really good hip mobility and good hamstring flexibility. It doesn't have to be that deep. It can literally be there. If that's as far as your range of motion will allow, it doesn't need to be anything crazy. But if you've got the range of motion, go ahead and go as deep as you can. The main thing is you want to feel the stretch in your hip and your hamstring, and basically in the hamstring is really where the big stretch is happening. All right, next exercise are sweepers. Evan takes one heel forward, knee completely straight. His arms go from back to forward and he brushes the floor and he moves forward. One more time. Brushing with the heels forward. Good. And then The last two exercises is a heel run. He essentially goes up on his heels and he walks the length of the carpet. We're a bit limited on space here, but generally on the carpet, you would run all the way down and then run all the way back. And then the last one, you guys know them, warm-up kicks. They're just, we call them flutter kicks just for warm-up so we can differentiate, but essentially he's just going to step and kick, step and kick, step and kick on both sides. All right, good job. All right, so that's generally our PMA warm-up. It's a really great warm-up. You can do it anywhere. Right now, of course, we're going slow and kind of pacing it, but in a gym environment, you would essentially be moving. It would be nonstop and continuous. That way you get your heart rate up, and that way your joints and everything gets ready for the exercises that you're getting ready to do. But again, that's a really good exercise. And again, you don't need that much space. You don't need to go the length. You could essentially do everything in the same spot. So that's a good way to start. One of the also big reasons why I see many injuries arise are improper warm-up. You want to make sure that you get your heart rate going, make sure that your body is warm, that your joints are warmed up before you do any exercise, particularly a strength training program, because if you don't, you could really run into a lot of injuries. All right. So with that, we're going to get into our 4 exercises. Now, I thought really long and hard about how we incorporate a lot of these exercises. And at the end of this session, what I'll do is I'll actually show you how I incorporate these in a workout. I mean, I'll show you exactly what we do within our gym, essentially how I put it together and what we do. And for the sake of application, I'll also go through like, you know, how many reps should you do? How many sets should you do? And what I focus the 4 exercises around are 4 of the main body parts that tend to have the most injuries in Wushu. So I focus the 4 around that. And I've come up with the 4, I would say typically the most critical and important exercises that I have my athletes do to keep them healthy. And again, take it for what it's worth. This is our process. This is what we've used. Feel free to, you know, modify this as you need to, but we've had really good success with these. So the 4 body parts that we're going to be going over are 1, I'm sure you can all guess what the first one is. It's the knees. Okay. A lot of knee injuries, and we've got something to address that. 2, maybe to a lesser degree, but still there is some frequency, are the ankles. A lot of ankle strains and a lot of ankle injuries. We'll show you an exercise and maybe some other supporting ones that you can do for that. 3, lower back. A lot of lower back injuries due to the twisting, rotating, bending over motions, quick acceleration movement to the back. And then 4, to a lesser degree, we'll cover some, but we do find it beneficial to also strengthen your wrists because we do see a lot of repetitive use injuries in wrists due to sword, you know, weapon techniques. And again, what we've tried to do is things that you can do relatively easy with bands, but for the most part, we're going to be going over body weight stuff. So let's start for the sake of time. So we have the most amount of time to cover it. We're going to start with the knee. Okay. And the exercise that we've come up with that we've had the most success with for knees is the single leg squat. Now I know the automatic first thing that everyone is thinking is, I can't do a single leg squat. It is a really, really technically difficult exercise to do. It requires a significant amount of strength and balance. But don't worry, there are a number of different exercises and progressions that I'll show you that you can utilize either for yourself or for your athletes or other students that you're training with. And we'll cover some of those here. We'll start for some of the most basic and then work our way up. So the first place that we start with a single leg squat is assess whether you can actually do a single leg squat. So for the single leg squat, Evan, can you demo 1 single leg squat? What Evan does by what I mean by a single leg squat, he's going to balance on 1 leg, squat, and stand up. Again, requires a significant amount of strength and mobility. But what if we can't do a single leg squat? Well, one really good strength training program where we start is step downs. What's a step down? It's essentially a single leg squat, but you're not taking it through the full range of motion as a full squat. So where you would start is one place where we like to start was stairs. So if you have stairs, I mean, you can stack anything really and just get you a little bit of space. I think the average step in the United States is something like 7.5 inches. That was perfect depth. What I like to use is yoga blocks. The only caveat I'll give you is make sure that it's a sturdy yoga block and that it's not going to slide out on you. So what you would do on a step down, you would have the athlete step on the block or step or whatever it is. He's going to stand up. I'm going to cue him to turn his toe up. And I want Evan for his heel of his foot to touch the ground. And then he's going to stand up. Now, the cue for the athlete is as you go down, you don't want to stand down. So show me standing. He's going to step down and all his weight releases when he steps down. You don't want to do that. You want to go light. One cue that I've successfully used with younger athletes, children, is I'll pull my hand down and I'll say, lightly touch my hand and go up. And he'll go down. I'll tap and make sure he's not putting significant pressure. You don't want to completely bury your hand underneath because you will have someone stepping on your hand inherently, but lightly there to progress and push up and make sure that they're doing it properly. Now, from there, let's say that this causes you knee pain. Let's say that even this range of motion is still a little bit of straining for your knee. We have encountered that a lot. And so what we've got, the next progression that we've got is you can do the same movement without the actual step. You will need a piece of equipment, which a band will do. These are, I think I got this band for like $6 on Amazon. How thick depends on how strong the band is. So it's totally up to you depending on your strength level. But what these are called are terminal knee extensions. And anytime that you're trying to strengthen the knee, what you're really trying to do is strengthen the surrounding muscles in your quad. To some degree in your hamstring too, but the quad is really what we're focusing on. The knee is built up of a lot of ligaments and joints. So there's not a whole lot that you can do to strengthen the joints or ligaments, but you can strengthen the surrounding muscles. And one in particular that is located right here on the interior portion of your quad, lower part of your quad, which is called your VMO. And that's specifically what this targets. So what you want to do is anchor it to something solid. Ideally, we would anchor it to a squat rack. You can use anything. I mean, we would have stretch racks. You could anchor around like a pole, a street pole, a banister. You want to make sure that this is not going to move. So what I'm going to have Evan do is he's going to step through with one leg. It's going to go just below the rear of his knee. It can go to the knee if it doesn't cause him pain. I'm going to act as his anchor here so it doesn't pull. He's going to step away from the band and put tension on the band. From there, he's going to take a deep step back with his left foot. He's going to flex his knee towards me. And then he's going to extend back. When he extends his knee back, he's tensioning the band back and really tightening his VMO muscle. He's going to go, give me 3. There you see him putting strain on his VMO muscle. I can see it from here. I can definitely see the tension. And then he's going to switch sides and he's going to do the other side. Again, he's going to put tension on the band, take a deep step back. Now, again, the further that you step away from the band, you can also add added tension. So if he pulls way further back, it's going to be a lot harder. And then he's going to do a couple sets of those. Go ahead. 2. Give me 1 more. And 3. Good job. All right, rest. All right, good work. So as a part of that, I'm sure what you're asking is going to be, well, how many do I know? How many do I do? Which gets into rep scheme. By rep scheme, I mean, how many exercises should you do? How often should you do them? It's really difficult to say. And I know that's not a good answer, but it really just depends on your level of strength, your level of fitness level. I'll give you my baseline. And this is just my rule of thumb where I typically like to start with all athletes. And with body weight exercises, where I like to start is 3 sets of 10. If we're doing, single leg exercises, of course, that means each leg, right? So 3 sets of 10 on the right, 3 sets of 10 on the left. And then I typically go from there. And again, if you can do a single leg squat, but you can only do 5, you got to play with that. I mean, there's rep schemes of 3 by 3, 5 by 5. It really depends on you. So I'll give you a hypothetical situation. So let's say you're working up to 3 working sets of 10 single leg squats on each leg, but you can only get, let's say, 5. In that case, what I would say is back it down from your max, do 4 on the right, do 4 on the left, and then do that for, instead of 3 sets, because at 3 sets, you're only getting 12 reps per leg. I would say maybe do 5 sets, do maybe 6 sets, do maybe 7 sets. Work to where you are fatigued enough to where you're building the strength to be able to do the exercise. The big thing to strength training and general physical fitness is what's called adaptation. Now, what that term means is, I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm trying to build strength. Let's say I'll give you a very simple move, a curl. Let's say this is a 10-pound weight. And let's say I'm trying to do 10, but I can only do 3. Okay. So if I do this enough every day, I will eventually be able to do 4 and then 5 and then 6. Then I can do 10. If I continue to do 10, my body will get used to that weight and it may not progress to the next weight as quickly as I want it to. That's essentially called adaptation. It means your body essentially building strength to be able to get to whatever it is that you're pushing it to. So you want it to be challenging and for it to be difficult. And so that's kind of my rule of thumb for figuring out rep scheme. How many do you do? How many sets do you do? It's just based on your level of strength. So again, my baseline is 3 sets of 10 for everything. That's generally a good baseline. And then you can add weight to any exercise to make it more challenging. And I'll show you how you do that. So again, we've gone over single leg step downs, banded step downs. And now the next step is going to be sit down. And I'll show you how you do that. So let's say you've progressed. You can do 3 sets of 10 on both of those step downs, banded TKEs. They're too easy. From there, what you can do is just get a chair. What Evan is going to do, he's going to extend one leg to simulate the single leg squat. He's going to sit and he's going to come back up. Give me 3 sets. Again, he's simulating the single leg squat by doing this exercise. However, he's not going to full depth. And again, this is building and working on that VMO muscle, giving him that nice knee stability that he needs to build that strength there. And again, you could get a chair that's taller. You could get a chair that's lower. One big tip that I'll give you that I found that works really well with children is what you don't want to do is if you do a single leg squat, when you sit, you don't want this. I'll show you what I don't want. I don't want to just fall and just sit and then just shoot up and just sit, because you're not putting your muscles under tension and building the strength to be able to slowly control that movement of down and up, which is what we need to be able to build up to a single leg squat. And so to counter that, one thing that I found a lot of success with is using yoga blocks. So for children, one really good thing to do is set up yoga blocks and have them descend to the yoga blocks and come up. The reason I use that is because of the instability that adds to the exercise. If they just fall, they're going to just fall. So they need to be able to do it slow and controlled. And it's really going to build the ability to build that full strength to be able to go down and then come back up. Now, Evan, let me have you demo this way going forward. And I want you to sit at the bottom and just rest at the bottom. Now, as Evan goes down and he sits there, what does that move look like? Empty stance. So this is a really, really, really good exercise that has a lot of crossover for empty stance, single leg balances. It really builds all the muscles that you need to be able to go all the way to full depth. So let's say we've gone all the way down from yoga blocks. At that point, you can progress to the full single leg squat. If you need assistance, you could use a door. You could stand inside of a doorway, hold the door sill, do the single leg squat. Once you can do that easily and you can do it full weight, Evan, once you demo single leg squats, give me 3 on each side. We would just go to a full single leg squat. 3, good. Once you can do that, you want to make sure that you're dominant on both sides, that you're equally strength on both sides. You can do it on both. 3. Once that becomes too easy and you can do that easily, what I generally tell my athletes is that's okay. We can make it harder. We can have Evan stand. He's going to go hands behind his back. Single leg squat. 1, 2, and 3. And then from there, if we want to make it even harder, we can add weights. We can use a kettlebell. We can use a plate, a book, anything that adds weight to put a lot more strain on the legs and be able to build that strength to be able to go down. All right. So we've covered legs, knees in particular, with single leg squats. We're going to move on to the second exercise that we like to incorporate within our training, and that's for lower back. Okay. So for the lower back, it's not as complex as exercises as I have for the knee. It's going to be a really, really simple exercise, which is called a hip raise. The hip raise has a number of different variations. There's even hip raises that you can use with a barbell. But for the sake of today, again, we're trying to emphasize on exercises that you can do in a Wushu gym without any equipment. So for the hip raise, I'm going to have Evan lie down on the floor. Really, really simple. We're going to start with really basic. His knees are turned straight up to the sky. His heels are close to his hips. And what he's going to do is he's going to place his hands wherever he wants to, and he's going to raise his hips to the ceiling as high as possible, staying on his heels, and go down. Give me 3 sets. And 3. Now from there, if we want to make it more difficult, this is generally a relatively easy exercise to do from the floor. So he's going to raise 1 foot, and we can increase the difficulty by raising the foot. He goes hip to the sky. 2, and 3. From there, if we want to make it even more difficult, we can start to incorporate a height by adding a little bit of maybe on a raised step or anything like that. Again, he'll do the same thing, both feet, single leg up, 2, and 3. And then where I like to, the exercise that I like to incorporate for typically my advanced athletes, which is the best, is typically then having them go do a hip raise on an elevated platform. Here, you want to take note that the knees are vertical, that his legs are shooting straight up and down. His heels are on whatever it is that he's on, the elevated surface. And when he raises his hips up, I want full flexion. I want him almost to have an arch on his back this way. So give me 2, 1, and 2. From there, if we want to make it even harder, we can take the leg and extend. And at this point, what I tell the athlete is try to touch the ceiling with your foot. It's going to do 2, 1, and 2. Inherently, when you're coaching children and they're doing this exercise, show me a shallow hip raise. You'll get this, or sorry, a shallow, just a low hip. Yep. You'll get a lazy hip raise that rotates out, or he'll rotate out to the side. One easy way that you can cue this for an athlete, let me use your opposite leg, is you can have them do the same setup the same way, and you can set a goal for them to hit and say, high five my hand. And then just find it to a depth. You can lower your hand to a depth where it becomes challenging. If I really want to make it challenging, I can make him really reach. If I want to make it easier, I can go further down. And again, you can play with this and make this more challenging. Evan, stay there. If I want to make it even more challenging, I can do a weight. This is 25 pounds. He can hold it, place it on one of his hips or at the center of his hips, and he would go both feet, hips up. Same thing. And again, this is a really, really simple, really easy exercise that you can do anywhere, and it doesn't require a lot. Again, where I like to start with these, and my baseline for hip raises is 3 sets of 10. And again, if we're going single leg, we'll typically do, of course, 10 on each leg. All right. So again, this is a really, really simple, easy workout that you can do without requiring a lot of equipment. And that's our lower back. All right. Moving on into the next area. Now, this is one where I'm going to give you one exercise, but I'll give you a couple of other bonus ones because I do find that ankle injuries are run rampant within Wushu. What I found is what we have to address is a lot of constant changes in direction in Wushu end up with just accidents where people rotate the ankles or their ankle rotates, reach to the range of motion, and you get strained, sprained, sometimes as bad as breaks. So you need to be careful with the ankle, but there are exercises that you can do to keep your ankle strong. For this one, you are going to need a couple of things, ideally. Now, I can teach you the easiest one that you can do, which Evan is just going to do on the floor. I'll teach you the easy one without equipment, and then we'll do the harder one. So let me have you facing the camera, and it's just a single leg squat. You're just going to raise the knee and balance. Now, this is relatively easy. It doesn't require a lot of strength, but we can make it harder by raising the knee. That allows him to get a little bit of instability in the ankle. And what we want in this position is to lock the hip and the knee. And then that way he's having to balance on his ankle and forces his ankle to keep him up. Now, from there, if we want to make it harder, we can extend his arms and we can place something in his hands with a little bit of weight. And we can have him alternate it from hand to hand, passing side to side. That weight is causing instability and forcing his ankle to move. And again, get a little bit of strength. If we want to make this harder, what I like to do is I tell my athletes and children specifically, I stand behind them and spot just in case they fall, but I tell them, close your eyes and switch from side to side. And now he has no vision, and so he cannot focus on something. And so that even adds an additional level of instability in the ankle and really forces him to really stabilize with his ankle. Now, from there, we can step it up. And what I like to utilize is, I'm not sure what these things are called, but I call them the blobs. You can get these from any place. These are like balance balls. They look a number of different ways. Sometimes they're called, there's wobble boards. There's all sorts of different things, but basically this is just a soft pad. Something that you can utilize that is very similar in nature to this is you can take like a couch cushion. You can roll up a couple of towels and just give you a base so that it's unstable. I can tell you that in my competitive career in Wushu, I strained my ankle really badly. And one thing that my physical therapist had me do was do it on a bed, because your bed will add a lot of instability to it and it'll pull you down and really force your ankle to go beyond that range of motion. You don't want to go beyond your max range of motion. So you need to do this extremely carefully. You don't want to fall off your bed and take a header and get any more worse injuries. But what I like to do is use these to add more instability. And I have my athletes stand on the wobble board. I spot them at first to make sure that they can do it. From there, again, we do the same, raise the knee. That raises the difficulty level. That really forces him to focus on his balance and his instability. From there, we do the ball pass throughs to each hand. From there, if we really want to make it challenging, I'll have him close his eyes, do the same ball pass throughs. Good. Side to side. And good. All right. So you can see that can actually get really challenging. What I like to do is I tell athletes 10 seconds, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi to 10. If I doing pass throughs, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 10. And then again, you want to make sure that you do both sides. Now, let's say you don't have a balanced ball. Other things that you can do, really simple. When I was in college, I would do this all the time to strengthen my ankles. I'm going to have my Evan sit down. And what you tell the athlete is basically draw the alphabet with your toe, with your big toe. And what you want to do is draw capital letters as wide as you can, as big as you can, really exaggerating the motion. So give me an A with the knee straight. He's going to go A, all full range of motion. B, and you do the full alphabet, A through Z. You do both sides, A through Z, your ankles will be sore. So this is a really, really simple, really, really basic exercise. Other thing that we can do from there is, again, utilizing bands. These are TheraBands. These are blue. Every color has a different resistance level. But again, you can get these anywhere. You can get them on Amazon. I believe you can get an entire roll of these. With these, you can do all sorts of exercises. But what you do is you anchor it or against something. You would go around his toe, and then you would have him flex in. Flex the ankle in, flex out, in, out, in, out. Then again, you can switch it up. You want to make sure that you do both sides. Do the external rotation out. Again, same thing. Out, out, out. And then lastly, you can do it yourself. You can just hold there. And then we can do forward and back flexion. And that's really, really easy, simple stuff that you can do at home with just bands. And this will really get your ankle strength on your ankle strong on multiple planes. But by and large, the best thing that I like to do is the single leg balance. All right. Shaping up into the tail end of our last exercise, we're going into the wrist. Now, with wrist, generally speaking, I tend to see mostly wrist injuries within the dominant wrist. You're typically the right hand. And it's generally done because of a lot of exercises that are done within your sword hand, within that hand. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can make a really, really simple wrist strengthening, really, really, really expensive, really advanced technique. All right. So I like to get a pipe. You can literally use a broken staff. You can use anything you want. For the sake of this, I'm using a band, but you can literally use, I think we found an old dirty rope one day and used a rope. And what you want to do is anchor it to your pipe. Now, you don't want it so that if the rope is on there, you don't want it to just spin freely. You want it to be really locked in there. So you want to either tie it with a knot or you want to add tape and tape it on. And then from there, I have my athlete hold it. And what I do is I then thread it or tie. It can be a weight. In this hand, I'm utilizing a really, really fancy old water bottle that Evan had laying around. And so what we do is we then anchor it. And what Evan is going to do is he's going to keep his hands horizontal. And I'm going to ask him to roll the water bottle up by rotating his wrists one at a time. He's going to go up. Once he reaches the top, I don't ask him to just drop it. I ask him to then return the weight back down. And what I typically tell my athletes is I want the weight to go up and down anywhere between 3 to 5 times. This is a really challenging exercise for your wrist. If that's too easy, you can increase the weight. I like using water bottles for a lot of things. And the reason being, you can add water to it and really increase the weight. So if you don't have weights or plates available, a water bottle is a super simple, easy way to add weight. A simple regular water bottle, a 16-ounce water bottle, 16 ounces of liquid are generally about 1 pound. So to give you a frame of reference, it doesn't require a lot of weight to be able to do this exercise. Okay? Good. The next thing that I like to do is, Evan, get your sword. The only problem with this exercise is that it only works on a forward, your wrist on this motion, forward and back. But with sword, you use all sorts of different angles. And so if you do inside flowers, your wrist is primarily rotating forward and back. So it's going on this plane. So one thing that you can do is either get a heavier sword, or what I like to do is, again, use my trusty water bottle. And what I typically like to do is anchor the water bottle to the sword. I'm using a band, but we'll simulate that this is tape. All right. And you want it as close to the hand as possible. You don't want it way out on your sword because you're going to bend your sword. But this is a really, really simple way. And again, what I like to do is I like to start my athletes with an empty water bottle. And again, I'm just doing it loosely for the sake of time, but generally that. And what I caution my athletes is do not do this fast. Okay. You want to do this as slow and controlled as possible. What we're trying to do is put a mild resistance on the wrist that is doing the exercise. If we're just flying through, you are going to injure your wrist. So what I tell Evan to do is do a slow rotation. Give me one internal, one external rotation. Good. Do one more. And then really focusing on keeping those body mechanics good and keeping everything close. And we've had really good success with this, and it generally keeps athletes' wrists healthy. If your ankles are already hurting, you want to make sure that you're not doing this because this will make it worse. But this is at least something that you can do to keep your wrist healthy. And then lastly, I know that folks like just buying gym equipment and things that for fitness. So I'll give you one tip. And this is called, I think these are called power balls, but this one's called a Dynaflex. You can get these on Amazon. I think I got this for like 15 or 20 bucks. And actually, I had initially gotten one as a present and I didn't know what it was. So I threw it in my closet. And one day my coach, Coach John Manjun, found this and started playing with it. And he fell in love with it and showed me what it is and how to use it. And basically, it just has a gyroscope inside. If you guys can see, it's like a ball inside of a ball and it spins. There's a couple that you can buy, some that you wind up, some that have a rope and you spin. But basically, once you get this going, a little light goes and it shows you, it starts to spin. And once this thing starts spinning, it's fun because you kind of develop it as a game. Once this thing starts spinning, it's going to try to rip out of your hand because it starts to shake. And with this, you can do different wrist rotations. And this will get your wrist really strong. It's funny because we started incorporating these in our training program, and I would just give these to athletes just to play with. And one, they find it hilarious to play with this thing and make it challenging to try to beat each other to be able to get it to spin and light up. But two, it is a great exercise to be able to strengthen your wrist and really give you a full range of motion and give you a lot of wrist stability and instability. Because the biggest thing to a lot of these exercises, particularly the ankles and the wrist, is that it's not controlled motion that generally causes injury within athletes. It's typically you're fatigued, you're moving fast, you're entering into a movement with full acceleration, and you may not have the control to be able to control the movement. And so what ends up happening is you end up getting into a range where you exceed your range of motion, or just over time, it just wears out your joint. And so what you want to do is kind of simulate that in a controlled manner with resistance, right? It's like a squat. If I do a squat with no weight, it's relatively easy. But if I add weight on my back and I do a squat, it's going to get harder. So it'll put more strain on the muscles that are required to give me stability for that exercise. So with that, power balls, get yourself one, play with these. These are great. You can literally use these anywhere, watch TV and do them, and it'll keep your wrist really strong for sword exercises and keep your wrist healthy. So to wrap this all up, how do I incorporate this into a strength training program? So for the sake of this, I'm going to show you 2 or 3 bonus exercises that you can do at home that you can incorporate. That way I can sort of show you the wrap up of this and how we would incorporate this into a strength training program and how I incorporate it to my athletes. So I'm going to give you at least a couple of more exercises that you can add to your repertoire so that if you want to do these in sort of a training program, I'll show you how you do it. So another exercise that covers the knee, which is for your quad, is rear foot elevated single leg squat. You can do this anywhere. The rear foot essentially just goes up on something high enough so that it's either like knee level. It can be higher, it can be lower. But what Evan is going to do is then he's going to go knee down and then come up. Again, all of the weight is on his quad. really emphasizing strength on that side. 2 and 3. And switch sides. 1, 2, and 3. So we've got rear foot elevated single leg squats, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10. And then I'm going to show you a special exercise. I don't know if we've got enough space to do it, but we'll try to shift. Let me have you go in front of the rower. We're going to do this exercise here. So we're going to move the rower out of the way. And what these are called are wall slides. And we'll shift the camera over to this side just so you guys can see. Go ahead and move. Yeah, right there is good. So for this exercise, all you need is a foam roller, right? You don't even need anything fancy. This is literally just a piece of PVC pipe and a foam mat that I duct tape to it. And what I have my athletes do is step away from the wall. Stand right here. He's going to squat and he's going to lean, take a step back. He's going to squat all the way down. He's going to put his back against the wall. His feet are away, so forcing his back to lean against the wall, and then he's going to squat and he's going to go up. Really, really simple. However, just by using a simple band, we can really, really make this challenging. So he's going to put this through both feet, and then he's going to squat and put it around his neck. And then we're going to do the same exercise, but this time the band is really giving him a significant amount of resistance. He's going to squat and up. He's going to do this 2 more times. 1 and 2. And he's going to rest at the bottom. Now, if that's still too easy, we can incorporate weights, dumbbells, or any weight that you've got. You're going to go 1 and 2. This is a really, really good exercise. It's almost like a hack squat in a gym. So it really allows you to load up your quadriceps a huge amount, and it's a really good exercise. So again, I just wanted to show you those exercises so we can show you how we put it together. So how do you incorporate this into a training program? So what I typically do is I like to write out my workout before I approach it. So again, considering that I don't have anything going on, considering tomorrow my athletes are going to rest, they're not going to be doing any technique-specific workouts the next day, we can go a little bit heavier than usual. So what I like to do is start with something really simple. So I might start with something like the ankle. So I might do a single leg balance. So I'm just going to put balance, and I'll do 3 by 10. That means 3 sets, 10 reps, both legs, okay? Then I might do hip raise. I'm going to do hip raise. Again, 3 by 10. See if we can see that. And then we might do rear foot elevated single leg squats. I call these RFSS. Again, 3 sets of 10, really simple. And then maybe we'll finish with wall slides. So I'm going to just put slides. 3 sets. Now, here's where you can start changing it, right? So let's say 10 is a lot. And let's say we're using bands or we're using weights. That's going to be a significant amount of exercise. We might be able to cut those down. So we could do 3 sets of 10. We could do 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 7. Again, it's totally up to your skill level, your overall strength level. And that's just generally how we would sort of incorporate it. So again, keep that in mind. I don't always do 3 sets of 10. I might modify this if, let's say, we're in a heavy competition phase and my athletes need to do a jump training tomorrow. I may not even have them do this. I may have them do 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 3, with maybe a little bit heavier, challenging weight so that it is a little bit more difficult. But what I don't want to do is tax them. And again, you really need to consider what exercises you're incorporating in your day-to-day and how they factor into your Wushu training. And I realize some of you may not have that luxury, right? When you go into a Wushu gym, my athletes unfortunately don't have a say in what we're going to be training in day-to-day. But that's where I encourage you as an athlete to talk to your coach and coaches to talk to your students, right? I tell all my athletes, if you have any injuries, if you have anything that you're fatigued, maybe you haven't slept well, whatever it is, right? The more information that I have and the more that they tell me, the better that I'm then able to modify and play with my program. Don't think of your programming as something that's like immovable. If it's like, well, coach said it's 3 sets of 10, I have to do 10. If something hurts, don't do it. And that's what I tell all my athletes, right? I've shown you enough variations and modifications to exercises that you can generally do any of these exercises without really killing your knees, killing your back. You know, the number one thing is longevity towards your wushu, and anything that affects that negatively, you don't want to start inducing that into your training. So I hope you've learned a lot. We've gone through a lot of strength training exercises. If you'd like more information, you're more than welcome to email me, coachmario@pmaava.com. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you've got. There's a lot of really good resource material on USAWKF website. So please be sure to keep up with all of their accounts online as well. But again, this is Mario Martinez and Evan signing off. Thank you again for your time. We'll take any questions if you guys have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mario. That was a ton of information, very, very practical for all the Wushu athletes out there. If anyone has a question, you can put it in the chat. Mario, I had a question for you. During your warm-up routine you were showing, why do you run on the heels?
So the heel stretches are really good for stretching your hamstrings and your calf. And it just forces you to really dorsal flexion on your shins and your calves. And it's just an additional warm up just to keep your heart rate moving. Before we did that, we would do sprints back and forth. And when we cut out the heel runs, they just weren't giving us that much bang for your buck. And then also once you start moving into like stances, like drop stances, like that ankle flexion, I just like to incorporate it to get our athletes really thinking about like really stretching the ankle, dorsal flexion in and out, full rotation. And it's just another thing to sort of jack up your heart rate and keep you moving. Now, again, when we do it like moving, like it's like moving, go, back and forth, increasing all full range of motion.
So it's that like active ankle stretch by flexing the ankle.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like that thing is like moving. It's kind of silly to see, but yeah, inside the gym, it's all these exercises are moving. And again, full speed. Evan, can you demo just world's greatest stretch? And so the speed that he would do this is like typically like boom, turn, step, boom, step. So a lot of these exercises, I know we kind of went through them slow so you could see them, but in the gym, what I tell my athletes is like move, and I'm continuously monitoring to make sure they're getting full range of motion. And again, these are really good because they work on a lot of stuff. So like rear step, reach back. It's really good for just coordination, balance, anchoring the heel. Everything is really like strong and controlled. Nothing is like, loose, no loosey goosey is what I tell my athletes. Everything is full range of motion, full extension. And again, that's just to warm up your hips and your joints. Where I see a lot of athletes get injured is just they come in super tight and then they just want to jump in and start doing kicks, running, jumping. And so the warm up is super critical. And so I tell my athletes dynamic warm up number one. Sometimes we may add a little bit of running, but usually you'd be surprised if you go through that warm up going back and forth on a carpet, you'll be pretty tired. It's a really good, really, really efficient warm up.
So during that warm up, those stretches, you're never holding the stretch. You're actively moving in and out of those positions. Okay.
Yep. That's right. Yep.
Great.
And of course, right, before we even start, like there may be some like really static like warm up, right? We never just dive right into that as well. There might be just a little bit of like stretching, like just slight stretching for maybe like 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll go right into dynamic warm up. So again, that's like once you've gotten your stationary stretching out of the way, just making sure everything's moving, you're ready to move. That's what we would incorporate. I know in China, a lot of what we would typically do is like do static warm ups in space, and then we would jog, we would do sprints. What we've done is taken the place of that running and sprinting and replaced it with a dynamic warm up so that we ensure that all your major muscle groups and joints are warm. Because what we found is yeah, I can sprint, but maybe I haven't rotated my back. Maybe I haven't rotated my calf. Maybe I haven't really engaged my hamstring. So that dynamic warm-up is really intended to really get everything going. And and again, that's something that we took from pro teams. It's just quick. It's quick and dirty, and it'll get you ready to go for your exercise.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for Mario Martinez from Professional Martial Arts Academy for that very informative seminar. Again, all these videos will be available online later for review. And moving on to our next presenter, I'll hand it off to Cindy Tong, who will be moderating that session.